Coming up on today's show, Jeff and Sarah have been together almost 8 years. They've been open relating for 5 of those years. Jeff is a public school educator and men's coach, and Sarah is a sex educator. They live in Colorado with their 2 kids, ages 13 and 8. Here, they will share their incredible results that they achieved working within our open relating coaching program here at Loving Without Boundaries as another amazing client success story. Welcome to Loving Without Boundaries, where we hear inspiring stories, share actionable advice, and talk about the challenges and the joys of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. I'm your host, Kitty Shambliss. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Jeff and Sarah.
Are you bored with dick pics? Do random hookups and empty chats kill your vibe? Tired of being catfished or wasting time with messages from faceless profiles? Then you need to get Monogamish, a new dating app designed for singles and couples of all genders and sexualities, looking for dates, mates, and everything in between. Access exclusive matchmaking events, workshops with dating and sexuality gurus, and exclusive offers so hot you'll just have to see for yourself. Download Monogamish for free from Google Play or the Apple App Store. Monogamish. Explore fluid relationships.
Hello, community. We are live, and I am so incredibly excited to be here with 2 of our amazing and transformed clients named Jeff Gleason and Sarah Love, whose hair is looking fabulous today.
Thank you.
Yeah, just absolutely thrilled to have you here to have a beautiful discussion. I'm just absolutely honored to get to share your story, because so many people out there don't necessarily realize that there is help for wherever they are on their relationship of living their most authentic lives. So I honor you both for originally reaching out for help, for doing the work so that you can tell your story. So with that, I'd love it if you both would just give a little bit of an introduction in your own words so that people can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Love. And I live in Colorado. We have been open relating for a few years now, but it kind of ran into some roadblocks. And that is how we came upon Kitty's course. And yeah, it's been incredible. Yeah.
I'm Jeff Gleason. I also live in Colorado. And yeah, just, we definitely needed some help of navigating some of our pieces that we were running into. And, we both are, formerly educator. I'm an educator, but we also, do a lot of work in some like coaching and different things like that. So we're in the work, but also needed some support as well.
Mm-hmm. Totally getting it. So, and I love that the 2 of you are just being so authentic and honest here, that I'm sure that your message is going to resonate with so many people. So if you can go back in your minds, I guess that would have been close to maybe 3 months ago. Where were you at when you first reached out to me? Like, what were some of your biggest struggles? What were some of the challenges? If you can go back in your mind to those places and describe it here for us.
Well, for me, I come from a serial cheating background of not being, open and honest, and, thinking that poly was like, okay, this is the fix to it. Okay, let's just do this. And then realizing that, yes, and those behaviors still came through for me, and they were not serving our relationship and our process of opening and doing it with love. And so a lot of that was coming back around for me of just not owning my desires, not speaking my truth, and in hiding. And it completely was demolishing our relationship to a place of like, are we going to actually make it through this? And we had tried lots of different things before it. And it was just like, we were at a breaking point, I would say, of like, we either need to find help or we need to dissolve this relationship and move on to something different.
Yeah, I think we had gotten to a point where it was like, and not anything we did, it just would result in a fight. So it was like, no matter whether it was something so simple, like who's doing the dishes, to something really challenging, like, hey, I'm going to go out tonight. And I guess that's not even that, or can be challenging. But everything resulted in a fight, and we just could not get on the same page. And I know for me, it was, I was really stuck in this blame loop of, it was constantly Jeff's fault and I was doing nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were kind of in that kind of like pointing the fingers kind of blame game, which can also be really disempowering, because you're kind of like giving your power away, because then when we're making it the other person's fault, we're giving them the power to create our happiness or our unhappiness. So, yeah. So, and thank you again for being so vulnerable in describing that. And I remember that. I remember that call very vividly, actually, and just how emotional you both were. And I could feel the tension as well as the frustration of, we want this to work, but we don't know what to do. And, we don't want to break up, so there was a lot at stake.
Yeah.
So now that you've maybe gotten this far, can you think of maybe some underlying issues that you may not have even realized were part of what was causing some of the stress in your relationship that you can look back at now, maybe with some grace, but that might be helpful for other people to hear?
Yeah, I know for me, I recognized how I had gotten into the space of like, he could do nothing right. So even if he was doing something that followed agreements or whatever, I just was in such a space where everything was his fault and everything was making me uncomfortable. And I was struggling to get to this place of like opening my own like stories and challenges and recognizing how much like I was still applying this like monogamous belief system into our relationship. And that kept getting me stuck in this loop of like, well, you're doing this to me, that, this shouldn't be happening, or it's your fault. Or I really was blocked on seeing him as a human and having needs. And it was more about like all this internal struggle that I was feeling that I wasn't aware of prior to the class. So that was something that really opened up for me. And I really had realized like I wasn't listening to him and I wasn't supporting him and some of his needs. It was all about me and my own internal struggle. So, yeah.
Powerful. Yeah. And how about for you, Jeff?
Yeah, I would say that one of the big areas that I came through was my limiting beliefs that I have of myself and just how I show up, and really how that, comes out, especially when, Sarah's out with a new partner or something like that, of those beliefs just festered in me and just swirled around like crazy. And then I would lash out. And that being, something that I just had to really become aware of, because before I was just lashing out, not knowing where it was coming from. And then it was like, wait, no, these are my beliefs that I have about myself that I've experienced from previous lives or previous experiences before Sarah even came into my life, of like, some of these limiting beliefs, I don't even know if they're actually mine. They might have been passed down from my parents. Like I'm trying to pick apart all of these different things. So that is one piece. And then I think the other piece for me too is like actually like figuring out what are my values or my desires or like the things that I really want, because I was like getting upset, like I wasn't being able to speak my desires. And it's like, but I didn't even know what some of my desires were. And it's like, I don't even know how to ask for them. And so it's like completely shifting and changing my whole mindset of like, okay, well, I got to figure out what those are for myself first, and then have, the courage to come forward and say that out loud to my partner. And then how do I start acting on those if that are all still in alignment and follow our agreements? And so,
yeah, that I feel like there was this one moment where, when we were talking about our needs, I kept saying like, I need security. I need to know what's coming. I need this. And I kept asking for it. And I was like, my needs are not getting met. And then when we had really dug into the needs, I had recognized that wasn't even a need that I needed. It was more significance, just knowing that our connection was still stable. And so after I realized this, like, and asked for that, it was almost like, oh, wow, this is so much easier. I was so much more like aware of like, I thought I needed this and I didn't. And so the needs section, I think really, really supported our relationship of understanding who we are and what we need and how to ask for that.
Yeah. So beautiful. And I remember that huge breakthrough that you had when you told me about that. I was so excited. But I want to pull out, so there was so much beauty and vulnerability in what you both shared there. But what I heard is there was previously like a lack of clarity, a lack of clarity around needs or even what your desires or your wants were. So that was really powerful. And the not realizing like that your mindset or your belief systems might have been holding you back. So sometimes we can be like our own worst enemy, but yet we're kind of like pointing the finger outward, but we don't realize it's actually our work to do. So and I love too what you said, Jeff, just about there's vulnerability and then there's the courage, right? It takes vulnerability and courage to give voice to what's really going on, or even to maybe admit, hey, I could have done a better job there, or, hey, I made a mistake, or the courage to say, these are my needs. I hope you don't reject me, when I tell you what my desires or my fantasies or my needs are. So just really, really beautiful. So
yeah, it's funny because I remember this one time where I came to Sarah and I was like, okay, I have a desire. Here it is. She's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like panicking. I'm like panicking and I'm like freaking out. And I tell her and she goes, okay, that's it. And she's like, okay, cool. I was like, wait, that's all? Like in my mind, I had pictured this, tornado of destruction and everything else. And it was like, and it just to receive a simple, okay, was like, I didn't know what to do.
That's incredible. Yeah, and it's a great example of how we can be our own worst enemy, right? We can create these like horrible worst case scenarios about the future, and then we're creating our own anxiety, we're creating our own fear. We often talk about, are you feeding your fears, with some of those belief systems, or are you feeding like living your best life, your dream, right? So what a beautiful example of that. So another thing I'd love to understand is, before you had reached out to me and you were at that breaking point of maybe we need to dissolve our relationship, I mean, that's huge, right? What were some of the things that you tried before you had reached out to me and to do this work? And how did those either work or not work for you?
I mean, I think this has been years worth of getting support. Like when we first ventured into this, we had like a relationship coach on how to like transition us out of monogamy. Sure. And, we sat down and wrote our agreements together, except that was based on like, control and it was very different. And then, we had tried some stuff out, and then we both had tried separate like therapy or, separate coaching. And not that some of those things hadn't been valuable, but I would say that like, it was just nothing was landing. It was like all theory or this idea of, but it was like, so how do you get through it? You can do all the things, or you can say that this is what you desire, you want, and you go out and do the things. But we just didn't have, I think, the tools to actually go through, like, how do we actually go through it? And how do we survive going through it? Because that was the piece that we didn't have prior to the class. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we read all the books. We read them together. We read them separate. We, again, like Sarah said, we had this separate coachings, and it just, nothing was really like helping us move forward. We just kept getting stuck in the same cycle.
Yeah, it was a lot of like the pretty side of poly, like, ooh, look at this. It's so pretty and it's so much fun and it feels so good. And it's like, yeah, and it's really hard. And I feel like there is a big shiny thing about, and that's what we got, was all the big shiny things, the high of it, but we didn't get the pieces of like, what do you do when you feel really freaking alone? Like, what do you do when stuff comes up and your body's like having a reaction and you don't know how to calm yourself down or not go into these stories that this is it and you're unlovable. And we didn't get that. Nobody talked about that. And
Wow.
that was what was most powerful, I think. Yeah.
That's incredible. And thank you for, again, just sharing all the different things that you tried, because it breaks my heart, but I see it all the time that people will come to me sometimes after years of therapy or reading, 10 books. But I often say it's one thing to read a book, and most people don't actually implement what they read in the book. Then it's another thing to be working with somebody who like totally gets it, and who gets also the dark side, the shadow side of living your best life. Because if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? If they wanted that, I'll be like, oh, look, here we are. Let's just live our best life and be, open relationship, polyamory, whatever works for you. But there's no shame in reaching out for help and then finding the right help. So I often say, like, you can either go really, really, really slowly, and so slow that you might just quit, and give up or break up, or you can go balls to the wall, right? Pardon the pun. And just look at all your demons and go through the part that's hard. And sometimes we talk about going into the forest, or the cave, face our fears, face our demons powerfully. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging, but that's where all growth is, Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that having the group coaching calls as well was like really supportive, because I think hearing other people like in their vulnerability of like, here's what was happening for me. And it's so relatable. Like, we've all gone through that. And so to hear other people have that experience and be able to like know that you're not alone, like you're not crazy, like this happens, felt, I think, so validating. And, you feel more seen and you really resonate with it. And then I think it gives you the opportunity to become more courageous around taking those steps towards doing things that are a little bit more scary or feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this, or yeah.
That's powerful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that the group coaching is, sometimes people tell me that they had no idea, they didn't understand how that was going to work. They were a little timid about it. Like, who are these people that are going to be on the call, right? Is this a cult I'm joining? But sometimes people tell me that the group coaching calls are some of their favorite calls. Because not only, I love what you said, like the feeling validated, that it's really relatable, feeling seen, all that's super important. But also just, like you said, not feeling crazy, but also we have fun on those calls. We get to know each other on those calls. We build community on those calls. And it's a rare situation where you can like walk out your front door and be like, oh, look, I'm in an open relationship. Are you? We don't do that.
Yeah.
So just seeing that you're on a call with other people where you're like, oh, that's really difficult and hard for you. It is for me too,
Yeah. There's this piece about it that it's like, it provides that opportunity to share and know that you're going to be received in like care and love. Like that was one piece for me. It was like, I've shared with friends before, but a lot of my friends have no idea. And the response I get is like, I have no idea how you're doing this. It's like, great. Thank you for your support. Like, exactly. I asked myself that question, which is why I've had to be in this course, Yeah. Like to be in that space, to be able to share and just be received in like care and just be like, oh, I feel you. And like just to be received in that and in my truth, just felt like, okay, it's one thing to be able to speak it to my partner and us to, share that. But it's like to have other people that we can share that with just really felt really warm and caring. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And we do our best to make sure not only in the Living Without Boundaries group community online, the big one, but certainly on those group coaching calls. I mean, it's sensitive topic, right? And people are opening up and being vulnerable because that is where growth happens. So we do everything we can to make sure that it is a really safe and supportive environment. That's why I take such great call, basically with interviewing people to make sure, like, are you going to be a safe person to invite into this space? Because we're counting this as a really sacred space, so that people can share, so they can raise their hand and ask the scary question. And what's magic too is somebody might ask a question that you didn't think to ask, or also you might ask a question where somebody's like, oh, I was too nervous to ask that. I'm so glad they did,
Yeah.
So it's just this magical environment and learning kind of bubble that we create in those calls. So Another thing I'm curious about is how did you first discover Loving Without Boundaries and my work? I can't remember. Do you remember?
I remember because it was at the very beginning of us opening our relationship.
So years ago.
Years ago. And we had gone out separately, and Sarah had an experience. We ended up meeting up at the end of the night, and there was some alcohol involved, and I was not very sober, but I completely spiraled out of control into this jealousy downward spiral, and was just a disaster. And I found your book, and I bought it for both of us, and we had gone through it. And then, it was one of those things where we read the book and then I put it away. And then, we tried doing all the other things, and then.
Yeah. Didn't deal with it. Yeah. And it's funny because we had, like we follow you, like there were these things, but it wasn't until like the breaking point. And I was like, email Kitty. Let's see if she can fix this.
And here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
It's like laughing and smiling and telling these awesome stories. Like, oh, remember that day when we like flipped out on each other?
Yep. It was sitting hungover at our son's baseball game, and me just in my crap. I was just in my funk, and it was just like, I felt awful, and but that's when we first found you, and then it circled back around later.
Yeah. That's incredible. So, and you said that was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That's what's fun about doing these interviews is I usually end up learning a whole bunch of stuff I didn't know. So I didn't know that part. So that's interesting. So even though you had the book and you read it, which is really cool. And I love how you're like, email Kitty, let's do it. When you first started the program, was there still a little bit of skepticism that either of you felt?
Yeah. I think I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing something else. Like I probably had the worst attitude because I was at the point where we had done so much and like nothing was working. And I was at a point where like, I just was over it. And I was like, we're going to waste this money. We're going to waste time. We're going to waste energy. And it's just not even going to be worth it. And that first week, I was like I was doing the videos, and I think it's that moment where you're like, you have this like epiphany that like that everything that you've gone through in the last few years just landed for me in that split second. Wow. And I was like, oh, like it finally was like, I am so contributing to the problem.
This was a huge relief for me because I've been holding all of that of like, it's all me.
Yeah.
Thank you. So when she came and said that, I was like, oh my gosh.
It was a moment of complete humbleness, of like going to Jeff and being like, listen, like, I am really sorry. Like, I am now acknowledging that I 100% am responsible for a lot of this. It was the shift I needed that I wasn't getting, right? So I was getting like hard advice. I was getting like to the point real. I was getting all these things, but nothing was landing for me. Mm-hmm. And I needed the moment to see how it was showing up for me. And that was the first week I really saw that. And yeah.
And it was the first week in the program?
The first week. That's literally like, I watched the video and I was like, the first video, and I was just like, oh, and I knew like this course is going to kick my ass.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It warms my heart that you had that epiphany, but I mean, also that you had it so quickly. Because that also was like a gateway for all the work that you were doing, because you trusted the process, you trusted me, you trusted that the two of you made a decision together, on the same team. You trusted yourself, like, oh, okay, all right, let's do this. I have some work to do.
Yeah, a lot of work to do.
Yeah, but what a beautiful epiphany to have right out of the gate.
Yeah.
That's incredible. How about you, Jeff? Was there any skepticism you had at the beginning?
I think I was more optimistic of like, this is going to be it. This is going to be the thing, like coming into it, because it was desperation. It was like, at that point, it was like, man, if this doesn't work for us, like, then it's really meant that we're not supposed to be together moving forward. Like, that's really what I felt. So I was all in. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, and it showed that you both were all in. So you've touched on it, but anything else that you would like to share? Like maybe in the first like 2 to 3 or 4 weeks, like what were some of the immediate results that you had? Some big ahas or breakthroughs, if you can recall. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of them was just understanding my like the survival emotions. Like really, I don't think I knew I was having emotions, obviously. But I wasn't aware of how they were showing up, or I don't even think at that point I was able to notice or understand what was actually going on inside of me. I just was like, there's something uncomfortable. I'm irritated and it's his fault. And so that was like the big awareness of like, this is normal. These feelings do come up. This is something that happens. I think another one of the big epiphanies in the beginning was understanding the difference between jealousy and envy. Mm-hmm. That was really powerful for me, because there were moments where I experienced probably envy more than I did jealousy. And there's this thing about jealousy that I feel like many of us have grown up with, that it's bad. I know the story for me was like, if you were jealous, you were like, no way, nobody would date you. Mm-hmm. And so, we stuff those feelings, and then we can't ever, there's like envy wrapped up in there, and to really understand the difference between the two really helps me understand, like, am I feeling envy or am I feeling jealous? And if I'm feeling jealous, what is it that I'm needing? Was kind of the opening to that piece. I mean, I think the way everything kind of every week was like a more of like the peeling the onion and getting to that gold. It just kind of built on each other. And so as I understood emotions, and then I understood that piece, like things started opening a little bit easier for me, because I was able to actually attune and navigate my own process, which I didn't have the skills to do before.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. And you did an amazing job, Sarah, just of continually applying what you were learning relentlessly, and building that muscle and doing it with a lot of grace, a lot of smile and laughter, self-deprecating humor, which made it a beautiful process to watch. But yeah, I want to just honor both of you just for how hard you worked through the whole process. And that's partly why you've had such incredible breakthroughs and success. So how about for you, Jeff?
Yeah, I would say that mine still goes back to my limiting beliefs. As like, that was my big aha of like, I mean, in relationship, yes, but in other aspects of my life too, of where I have the same, system built in of like just limiting who I am and how I show up. And for me, what I've realized is like, this is something that I need to keep revisiting more and more for myself, because it's so ingrained in my system that I need to continuously be aware of it and tracking it. And even, it's shown up again for me in times that I just need to keep going back and revisiting that, because it is so ingrained into my system. It's programmed into me to have this. And it's taking me a while to deprogram that or reprogram it into a better way for myself. So I think that is the big thing that really landed for me. And I'm realizing how much I need to kind of just revisit that to kind of help my system, because I'm not just going to fix it in the 3 months when I've spent, 30 plus years programming it that way. Like, exactly. It's not just going to be, okay, magic pixie dust, here it is, it's fixed. I did it once, I'm good. It's like, no, I need to go back again and again and again, just for my own system, because like Sarah was saying, peeling back those onions, it's like, okay, I take care of this limiting belief. And next thing you know, oh yeah, there's this one here too. And then there's this one. And then, I churn it around. It's like, oh, there's a whole other one on this side that I wasn't even aware of.
Exactly. Yeah. And so many people, I mean, a lot of people I've never even heard that expression before. Like, what is a limiting belief? So for folks who are watching, it's just any disempowering or sometimes just false and untrue kind of story or belief system that we have that is holding us back from living our best life. And it also can maybe put us in blame of our partner, right? Or it can just get us into emotions that aren't really serving us, and we don't realize we're doing it to ourselves a lot of the time. So I really appreciate what you shared there, Jeff, because it sounds to me like from the things that you two had tried in the past, that was also maybe something that wasn't being explained or taught, you know?
And it's really easy for me to blame her. I mean, it takes responsibility off of me. Like,
exactly. It's easier.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, like we said earlier on the call, like we don't realize that when we're blaming something outside of us for what's going on, I mean, unless you're like, you know, chained in a basement, you know, you've got free will, you've got choice, you know, you've got a plethora of information and places to go for help, including helping yourself. But until you know how to do that, that can be completely debilitating. So, and I love what you said too, Jeff, that we have like decades and decades of operating in this way with this belief system, and we don't realize it. And so it can take conditioning and work, and it doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes it doesn't happen over 9 weeks. You know, sometimes people need continual coaching. I know I told all of you, I believe if you're going to be a coach, you need to have a coach. So even myself, I put my money where my mouth is. I have a whole team of coaches that I work with because it's an ongoing process, right? Yeah. But it's a powerful process. And I feel like I'm a better person. I'm a better coach. I'm a better friend. I'm a better partner by being able to have somebody shine a spotlight on maybe sometimes the things that you can't see, or giving you skill sets in a way that you might need. So thank you for everything that you both vulnerably shared. So where would you say the two of you would describe where you are on your journey today?
You know, it's crazy because I feel like now, like I'm so much more able to like receive Jeff's desires than I was before. It's interesting because when we had, I don't know if you remember the group call when I was like, I just don't want to do that. Like I was like, I knew that I had to get to a space where like I needed to just receive it instead of being like, go do whatever. I don't want to like, I don't want to know. I don't want to hear about whatever. And there was this moment where like, you just have to do it. And what are you telling yourself when you're doing it? And I literally remember like writing in the book, like recognizing like, this is normal that we want to do these things. Like, this is nothing is wrong with it. Like, I'm okay. Like, I can receive this. And I remember the first time I asked Jeff, I was like, okay, like, you know, I want to receive, like, come in and tell me like, what is it? And I'm like reading my book. Like, I'm like, I have it out here, like waiting for it. Like, cause I'm so in my head thinking like, this is it. It's not, you know, I'm going to freak out. I can't manage this, whatever. And he like said it to me and I'm like, okay, can you give me a harder one? Like, okay. And he's like, you know, trying to like dig in there and he like gives me one and I was like, okay. Like, and as I'm reading it, it's so funny because I was like, I'm not really having any emotional reaction because I wasn't in the space of receiving it in my mind of like, telling myself the stories or what's really going on or how I'm interpreting it. Mm-hmm. I was actually just receiving it. And so I feel like that was a big turning point for me, just in terms of like being able to hold more and hear more and not be so triggered immediately about some of those things. I would say that, you know, I'd be lying if I said we still didn't struggle at certain times or have breakdowns, but we're definitely catching ourselves quicker. Yes. You know, it's not like where we're days into this and we're not talking, finally acknowledging it. And we also have like the language that we can share with each other. Like, hey, like, what about this part in the course that we took? Like, we're not following it. Like, let's go back to this piece. And so it's kind of like the way of accountability. And I would just say like, now I'm definitely managing emotions better than I ever have. And there's more of an ability to see Jeff for who he is and what he needs versus what lens I was looking through prior to that. Mm-hmm. So There's definitely more empathy, more love, more care. And, we're sharing more with each other than we ever have before. And we're understanding where each other's coming from. So, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say for me, it's, I'm noticing just again, that reprogramming that I need to go back and revisit some of those pieces that I'm struggling with. I feel like I'm in the space of being able to receive some desires and, some things with more love and compassion than before. And now I'm tracking, okay, yes, but then what happens when the stories start creeping up and, what happens afterwards, because they're still there. And I'm tracking that piece now of like, really, I described it like a volcano, like I'm good. The volcano, I see it. It's beautiful. And then all of a sudden it's like interrupts and I'm like, oh, where did that come from? And then some of those stories are still there and some of those pieces are still there. But I don't go into panic. I don't go into some of the things that I was doing before. Initially, right now it's on a delay for what I'm noticing. But again, that common language or the place that we're able to pause and stop and say like, hold on, I need to go take care of myself for a minute. Let's come back. Like some of those things are really working for us in our toolbox right now to still be in love and receive each other and work through things better, where before it was like, nope, this is it.
Yeah. And unraveling that codependency that we had with each other. That's definitely unwinding now.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Yeah. And also like just from what you said at the beginning of our interview, that the two of you were basically on the brink of breaking up, of divorce. But now, even though things come up, that you've got the tools, you've got the resources, and that you're on the same team. Like, that you two are solid. You might have some wobbles here and there, but now you know how to navigate them. Yeah. That's what I'm hearing loud and clear too. So yeah, I just really, again, just want to honor both of you for just saying yes to yourselves, for saying yes to doing this beautiful work, for trusting each other, for trusting this process, because this is the most rewarding part for me, is getting to this moment where we get to have these type of interviews. I get to see the magic and the transformation that I help guide you through, but you two are the ones that created the transformation. Like, it wasn't possible if you two didn't keep looking in the mirror, putting into practice what you were learning, and being really open and vulnerable with each other. And it's just so incredibly beautiful to behold. So
thank you. Yeah. And I think the biggest fun part of it all is that, my son is like, wow, you guys are really good at communicating.
I was just going to say, I felt the same thing of like, our kids have benefited from this too. Have. It's like just, how we're showing up for our kids and the way that they are seeing us communicate and we're communicating with them. Yeah. It's definitely empowered our whole family to grow.
Wow.
And not just us. So but our son has said that you guys are really good at communicating.
Yeah. When did he say that?
He just said it recently. We were at the dinner table. We were talking about girlfriends and like partners and stuff like that. And I had said something about relationships, and I was like, what do you think is so important? And he was like, communicating. And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, yeah, like you and Jeff are really good at it.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
That's lots of weird.
It was great.
That has to feel great for you too, because a lot of people don't they may in the back of their subconscious mind know that when they're fighting or having tension with their spouse, their kids are watching that. Kids are not stupid. They know what's going on. But the opposite is also true. So when you two are communicating in really beautiful ways, when you're feeling each other's heart and you're being great role models for what a great relationship can look like, and you defining what that looks like for you and your family, wow, like the positive impact that can have is so huge.
Yeah. It's incredible.
That's going to feel good to both of you, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Definitely does.
So I got to ask this, which is, would you say that you would recommend going through this process, like going through our program here is called Creating Happy and Healthy Open Relationships, Jealousy Survival Guide. Would you recommend this process for people who are maybe having similar struggles to where the two of you found yourselves?
Yes. To be honest with you, I think this course is good no matter whether you're pretty good, rough, like your relationship's rough, or, it's anything like monogamous, polyamorous, like the tools that are offered are so beneficial to your own self relationship to yourself. And it definitely supports relationships with another.
100%. I echo all of that. And just that personal journey too. It's like, that's the piece. It's like, the more I do the work, the more that I can connect with Sarah and, other people easier, because I know who I am better. So that's what I've learned, of course.
Yeah. So really coming from that place of like inner strength and security, which again is part of unraveling the codependency, like knowing I'm a whole, beautiful, amazing person, and I know who I am and what my values are. And so am I. And we're choosing to be in a relationship together wholeheartedly and joyfully. And we're also choosing to expand that love outward together. So, well, it's just, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be here and share your incredible transformational story. I love your energy. I love your smiles. I love your beautiful hair. And that's what's great too, is I always say, and I mean it so sincerely, that once you become a part of this family, you're a part of this family for life. So thank you for being a part of this family, for sharing your story here, and for giving hope and inspiration, which is such a gift to people who may be struggling and don't know this type of support and guidance and expert coaching with a real non-judgmental lens for people building lives in a way that makes sense for them. And I love how you said, whether it's monogamous or polyamorous or somewhere in between, just also doing this work is so powerful. So, and like for Sarah and Jeff, it all started with just booking a call. For them, they read the book first and then they booked a call. That's fine too. But you can also just go right to simply booking a call, which is lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. And that will simply just show you my calendar. You pick a time slot that works for you, fill out the brief application just to help me get to know you a little bit better, to prepare for our time together on the call. And then we'll put our heads together and we can see if it's a fit for us to work together. And if we're not a fit, that's okay. I'll let you know different places I can steer you to. But if we are a fit to work together, if I do think I can help you, we can come up with a game plan and have powerful transformation. And just like Jeff and Sarah, sometimes that means bringing people back from the brink of divorce or a breakup. And, and that is everything, right? That's priceless. So again, Sarah and Jeff, thank you so much. Any other parting words you'd like to share?
No, but thank you.
Yeah,
Just thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard, are struggling with some aspect of your relationships, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit to work with me as your relationship coach, here's what I invite you to do next. Head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, and book a call to speak with me. I'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes, and we'll get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, exactly what's not working well in your relationships right now. Number 2, ideally where you'd like to be and what might be getting in the way. And number 3, the exact strategy to get you there, helping to close that gap. Remember, creating healthy, open relationships does not typically happen by itself. Many often need expert guidance to make it happen. We've helped clients all over the world to feel safe, happy, and secure in open relationships, while not losing their mind or their cherished partners. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. I'm Kitty Chambliss, and let's talk soon.